What's up, ladies and gents? In today's video, we're going to be talking all about Crow. We're going to be discussing what we are seeing here on the charts, and I'll be giving you guys my price prediction for Crow over the coming days and weeks, as well as my targets for 2025. So be sure to stay tuned for all of that. Of course, if you are a new viewer, then welcome to this channel. If you do like this sort of content, hit the like button and subscribe for more. If you are a returning viewer, as always, welcome back to the channel. It's great to have you all here. So of course, we're diving straight into this video. We're going to start off with the shorter term here on Crow and then move on to those 2025 targets. Of course, we are on the 1 hour charts right now, and since our video yesterday, we have seen a bit of a drop. Of course, throughout the whole crypto market that you can see in the top right, we are seeing a bit of blood on the markets today. And of course, the reason for that was because we've had some economic data come out a little bit earlier to suggest that inflation in the US might be a little bit higher than people expected. So of course, a major reason for the bullishness that we have seen recently is because of the fact that we are expecting rate cuts in mid-September, and essentially seeing inflation higher than expected lowers the chance that we do get those rate cuts. So naturally, people get bearish when we see higher inflation than expected. But nonetheless, here for Crow, we are still bullish for the shorter term, meaning over the coming days and weeks, because on the chart for Crow, what we have seen, in my opinion, over the past few days has been a falling wedge pattern. So here on this channel, we've been looking at several trend lines here for the Crow price. It starts off with something that looks a little bit like this. You can see that here on the Crow chart, the prices have come up to this line to test it as a resistance on multiple separate occasions. And right now, we are also seeing a support that looks like this. For the same reason, it is a strong support because we have seen the prices come down to it on separate different occasions. So what has occurred over the past 2 days has been a breakout to the upside of this falling wedge pattern. And of course, this is a bullish thing, and we get a price target from a breakout of a falling wedge, which is the distance between the first test of support to the first test of resistance. And if we drag this measuring tool to where we see that breakout, you guys can see that we are expecting a price target here on Crow over the coming days of 0.38. So essentially the same price as that previous high that we made in August the 28th. So of course, despite this recent bearish price action that's been going on over the past few hours, it still hasn't invalidated the fact that we are seeing this falling wedge pattern. Now, of course, there's some other proof to tell us that we should be heading up here on Crow over the coming days. And the main thing that we have is the fact that we've seen a successful bullish divergence. So here on the 1 hour MACD, you can see that the trend line here for the support is heading downwards. But if we draw the same support over the same time frame here on the 1 hour MACD, you guys can see that this trend line is clearly heading upwards. So what that means is that even though prices are generally heading down here on Crow over the past few days like this, on the MACD, we see the momentum getting more and more bullish. And this basically tells us that in the near future, we could see a trend reversal. And of course, the trend here on the Crow price had been in this bearish direction. And now we've seen a breakout to the upside. It gives Crow the motivation to start on a new bullish trend. So that is some piece of good news here for Crow, despite the bearishness that we are seeing today in the crypto markets. Of course, we do have one major hurdle, and the major hurdle that we have here on Crow is the 0.28 level. Of course, you can see that here for the past few days, it has been a major resistance for the Crow price. So I think that the moment that Crow is able to break above this level, we could see things accelerate from there. And then the next target resulting from this falling wedge that we have is the 0.38 level. Now, of course, beyond that, in the coming weeks, I definitely can see Crow still going higher. The next natural target that we have beyond 0.38 is the 0.5 level or 50-cent region. This is a natural target for Crow because it was a massive support and resistance during this 2021 peak here. And of course, beyond 0.5, we have another price target that sits at the previous all-time high that is about the $1 region. So these price targets here on Crow are my shorter term targets that I think could be hit within the next few days to the next few weeks. Of course, if you guys want to get $10 completely free to buy some Crow before we see any potential pump here, then don't forget to check out the MEXC exchange. As you guys can see on the screen, they're giving every new user who signs up using the link in my description down below $10 to get started. Now, this exchange does not require KYC. The only thing you need to do to get this $10 is to deposit some crypto or fiat currency into your MEXC account, and then you'll get that $10 bonus straight away. So you can use it, like I say, to buy some Crow, or you can use that $10 to long or short Crow with up to 200 times leverage. Again, the link for this is in the description down below. Thank you guys so much for all of your support. Let's get back into this video. So, covered the shorter term targets here for Crow. In my opinion, things are still looking bullish. We do have this 1 day MACD, which we've discussed in previous videos as well, that we do also need to discuss for the people that have not yet heard about it. And of course, the major signal for me to determine whether the prices here on Crow are going to continue going up or whether they've topped out is this 1 day MACD crossover. So essentially, right now, we can see that we are still seeing bullish momentum on the 1 day charts, but the two lines are starting to close into each other. Now, I remain bullish until we see a MACD crossover. So essentially, a crossover would be when the two lines do something like this. That, of course, would be quite a strong sell signal. And of course, in the previous times here on Crow, that has generally marked a top after a parabolic move. So if we look at the end of 2024, for example, we had this parabolic move that came after Trump was elected president. We saw this top here kind of correspond when we saw this crossover on the 1 day MACD. That gave us a signal fairly close to the top here of Crow. And of course, from that point forward, we saw this slow decline on the Crow price. Again, at the start of 2024, we saw a crossover on the 1 day MACD, kind of signal a place where the price was close to the top. And here now, for this pump that we are seeing, we have not yet seen that crossover, but if we do see that crossover, just like we saw in history, I do think that could mark the end of this bullish trend that we have been seeing, and maybe we see a bit of a decline thereafter. So we want to avoid this crossover if we are bullish. Of course, if the prices do continue to head down, then we only have a few days left before we could potentially see a crossover here on the 1 day MACD. So just so that we're on the same page, this is something that is basically my guiding light, and I still remain bullish until we see that crossover. So moving now on to my longer term targets here for Crow. I'm going to go on the 1 week chart. Let's get rid of those annotations there. Let's get rid of the MACD. The main thing that we are looking at here on Crow in the longer term is the fact that we've seen a consolidation that looks a little bit like this. So you can see that we have a strong support and a strong resistance here on the Crow price. So you can see that with this resistance, the prices have come up to test it on numerous occasions. We have 2 clear tests there. And as you can see, over the past few weeks, we saw yet another test of this resistance before prices came back down and broke out to the upside just over the past week. Now, of course, the same goes for the support. You can see the prices have come down to the support level on separate different occasions. So it tells us that we have quite a strong chart pattern here. Now, this is a triangle chart pattern, and the fact that we've seen a breakout to the upside triggers off a certain price target. Now, the price target for this triangle is the first test of support to the first test of resistance. And if we drag this measuring tool to where we see that breakout, you guys can see that we are looking at a price target here on Crow of about $3. And that basically, guys, is my price target here for Crow of 2025. Now, of course, this is a very ambitious price target. From where the prices currently stand, we are about an 11x from the price target that we have from this triangle. But of course, something that gives me quite a lot of conviction to the fact that I do think we are seeing some sort of triangle breakout is the fact that when we look at the rest of the crypto markets, we are seeing so many other cryptos showing us a very similar structure. And so if I go on to Ethereum, for example, you guys notice that just like Crow, we are seeing a multi-year triangle with a breakout that has occurred over the past month. So you can see some similarities between the Crow one and the Ethereum one here. It's not just Ethereum. Have a look at Chainlink. We are seeing something very similar on the Chainlink chart as well. XRP is a great example to show us what happens when we get a successful breakout to the upside. You guys can see that this 6-year long triangle here on XRP was followed by a massive pump to the upside, and the list of cryptos that are showing us this triangle pattern just keeps on going on and going on. So it's not only Crow showing us this consolidation pattern, we are seeing that across plenty of other cryptos, which gives me a lot of conviction that we are also seeing this one here on Crow. Now, of course, if you want a bit more of a conservative target, something that has a higher likelihood of being hit in 2025, then some other targets that I am watching are ones that fall along these fib levels that have been painted since 2021. Now you can see that Crow respects these fib levels as places of support and resistance throughout its history. And so essentially the way we can use is that as prices continue to rise here on Crow, we can use these fibs to predict where Crow might find some resistance. So naturally the next target here, according to the fibs, is this next one up to 0.786 fib. This is coincidentally at 0.5, which is one of my shorter term targets as well. So the fact that a fib level lies there gives me a strong conviction that that is probably going to be the next target here for Crow in the shorter term. Beyond that, we have this one fib here, which is the previous all-time high for Crow. That for me is the most conservative target for 2025 here for Crow, just basically where the previous all-time high for Crow is. I do think that's going to be quite a strong resistance, so maybe we get something that looks a bit like this, where the prices get to the previous all-time high and we see a bit of resistance, a bit of a consolidation before Crow is able to journey higher. Now, if we are able to break new all-time highs here on Crow for this bull market, then the next target here, according to the fibs, is this 1.272 level, and that tells us we could see a target there of about $2. Now beyond that, we've got a price target at the 1.414 fib that tells us we could see about $3 here on Crow. So pretty coincidental once again that the price target from the triangle lies very close to this 1.414 fib, and that tells me that this price target is a serious one here for Crow that's going to be hit at some point in the future. Now, beyond that, we have the very ambitious golden fib ratio here, the 1.618 fib, telling us we could see around $5.50 here on Crow. So of course we have a range of price targets depending on how ambitious or how conservative you want to be. I think the most reasonable ambitious price target to have is around this $3 region here. The most reasonable conservative target to have is the previous all-time high at about the $1 region. Of course, I am very bullish here for Crow. I do think we have a good shot of hitting these ambitious price targets, especially when we get the correct conditions here in crypto. And the main thing we monitor to see what the conditions are like are is this fear and greed index and the altcoin season index here on the crypto.com, here on the CoinMarketCap homepage. So essentially the fear and greed index is a sentiment indicator. It's out of 100. The higher the number, the more positive the emotion. At above 80, we see euphoria and extreme greed in crypto. For the altcoin season, it's out of 100. Above 75, we see what is called an altcoin season, which just means that altcoins are wildly outperforming Bitcoin. When we see these two indicators close to 100, it gives us the kind of environment where 5x's, 10x's, even 50x's throughout crypto happen in the shortest spaces of time. And it's that kind of environment that gives us the best possible chance of hitting these upper price targets. Now, at the moment, we are nowhere near those levels, but I really strongly believe that there will come a time in crypto when we are indeed seeing euphoria once again. We are seeing an altcoin season, and at that point, we are going to have the best chance of going parabolic once again and hitting these price targets. So those are my thoughts here for Crow for the shorter term and the longer term. Of course, that pretty much wraps up this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. Do let me know down in the comments if you are a holder here on Crow. Of course, if you're a holder here on Crow, let me know what other cryptos you are holding in your portfolio. Always love to hear from you guys. Thank you once again for watching, and I'll see you in my next video.